For you guys that don't know me, my name is Coach Sean, and my company is Perdaxis Leadership Solutions. I focus on helping IT and R&D organizations get things done, become more predictable, and get insights into how to prioritize, how to execute. I use cool things called Lean and Agile. I also use Legos when it comes to leadership development and team building. So a whole variety of tools in the belt to help IT and R&D and IT operations teams be more effective at what they do. Tricia, why don't you just give us a quick overview of what you've got going on?
Absolutely. So my name is Tricia Warren, also known as the Friction Fixer. As you can see by my background, I want you to have less friction in your life and in your business. So I'm the owner and principal consultant of TLW Integrated Solutions, which is a very small consulting company that helps growing businesses align their talent, their process, and technology to reduce the noise in their organization. And I use a data-fed and people-focused approach. So if you're looking for someone to help streamline your organization or transform how you operate or find those frictional pieces in your business, then I am your person. Thank you so much for having me today, Sean.
Awesome. And I'm not having you, we're just getting together doing this. So we're here we are. So we got together like a week ago, Tricia, and we were talking about celebrating success. And I think we uncovered some interesting points that we wanted to come back and share with whoever wants to listen to us chit chat about celebrating success. So we don't have anything planned forever. We're just gonna kind of make things up as we go along a little bit.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing, and I'm just gonna ask you what your thoughts are, and then I'll share if you don't hit anything that I think of, is why is it important for people to celebrate success? What's the driver there?
Yeah. So I would say a few things because I've done it myself. I've not celebrated many of my large victories, which I regret not doing, but some of the things I think about of why not. So one thing is burnout, right? So every victory, I think for me felt like it was just another checkbox. So it was just like, okay, I've won, great. And then I'm moving on to the next thing. And so that kind of drains motivation to celebrate too, if you're not thinking in the mindset of, oh, let's celebrate this versus, oh, check mark, let's move on, right? Another thing I would say is that when you celebrate, you typically reflect. And so sometimes if you don't reflect or celebrate, you have those missed learnings where you're like, what worked, what didn't work. And you kind of lose that because again, you're on to the next thing. And then the last thing I think I'll say is about morale. So, say you're in a team and it's not just you, and you decided as the leader, oh, well, yep, victory won, and then we move on, and you never acknowledged, then it could kill the morale of your team because they never feel like they've made progress and they never feel like they've celebrated their progress or their effort that went into it wasn't necessarily acknowledged well. So, those are kind of three things that pop to mind for me.
I like those, and I agree with all those. So I'm gonna just try to riff off a couple of them. One thing that came to my head when you were talking about reflection is the other thing with my agile background. When I think reflect, I also think course correct. So you could also, you're celebrating your success, but then you could say, okay, is the next thing that I had planned really the next thing I ought to do based on this success? And if you're just moving down the checklist, like you said, then you don't ever do that as much. So I think it's a good time to reflect and decide if you're going to course correct or not.
Yes.
I like your point about morale. That was in my head. And I want to push that one a little bit further in that even if you're solo, celebrate it at a networking group, celebrate it with colleagues of some kind, celebrate it with your family, because you're going to give that positive energy to them and help inspire them to do something. Oh, Tricia was able to complete that, big or small, whatever it was. Oh, that means I can do it too. Um, and they're going to celebrate you and feed that energy back into you of like, right, they're going to clap for you physically or mentally as the case may be, and recharge your batteries besides whatever you do to celebrate, right? So I think
Yeah.
there's a cool. So the bottom line, right, it's important, and we should do it. You mentioned big success.
Yeah.
I think there's a, and I'm not saying you don't think this, but we got to celebrate the little ones, but you got to, this got to be commensurate, right? okay, I closed a $20 deal. I'm not going to go buy some Dom Perignon or something like that. But
Right, right.
what kind of trend do you see in celebrating success? So we tend to work with business leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs of small companies or medium companies, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
What's been your experience in their celebrating of success before we come in and try to help them?
Yeah, so I find that a lot of people skip it, to be honest with you. So, again, I'll give you an example. So, I think as human beings in general, we've kind of said, as soon as I think I said it before, as soon as we kind of hit that win, we're all like, our expectations are reset for the next one. So what's the next thrill ride? What's the next faster thing we can do, get to, and say that we're done? So in a lot of leaders' minds, they're like, okay, we've accomplished this because they have a task list that they need to accomplish. They're like, okay, we've done this. Okay, what about the next thing? What about the next thing? What about the next thing? Oh, we'll celebrate after we've gotten it all done. And so I think that's just the culture that we live in that's very fast, right? And very driven towards getting things done faster or getting things done and celebrating big versus celebrating small. So I don't think a lot of people think about the small wins or the small things that we're looking at across the board when we're talking about success. The other thing I'll mention too is that sometimes when people stop to celebrate, depending on what kind of environment you're in, it can look like you're slacking off, right? So
The
sometimes
culture
you're like,
problem,
hey,
yeah.
let's go grab a cocktail because we just did this well. And then in other people's mind or leaders' mind, well, if we stop, we're going to lose momentum and they're going to get off focus. So it's just all these ways of thinking that have led us down this path of go faster, do more, celebrate big versus no, move with intention and celebrate the small wins so that those things are in your mind when you go to the next thing because you're going to be celebrating again. So that's kind of
Yep.
my take on it from the corporations I've been in or the things I've seen.
There's two parts I want to come to. I'm going to start making notes as you talk because you keep giving me these great little sparks and I just can't keep up with them all. Um, this idea of only celebrating at the end, that makes me think of, a newly married couple or whatever, and they're trying to wait to be ready to have kids. You're going to always need 10 more dollars. You're going to always need a little bit more of this, a little, there ain't no ready.
That's right.
It's just time.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's the same thing with celebrating. You keep trying to celebrate the big thing, and who knows? I mean, if we're talking, giant megacorps, you may
Yeah.
never hit that end because by the time you get there, shifts and you go do something else, and we move that project to cancel it, whatever, and you didn't celebrate along the way. And go back to your point of that's tough for morale and everything.
Yeah.
Um, Now I'll say, this is Sean's anecdotal observations here.
Yeah.
I feel like men are typically worse at this than women at least a slight margin. But
Okay.
anybody who's a driven leader is probably bad at this, regardless of gender, because they are so forward looking, and that's why they're considered a driven leader.
Yeah.
I think some of it's in the like the hunter kind of, okay,
Yep.
I killed that, now I got to kill the next thing, or people die or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so there's a stigma. I like your point about perception of others. That's an interesting one because to me, that speaks to a much larger problem. That's a culture problem, as in the
Yep.
culture of a company or an
Yes.
organization or wherever you are. That's if celebrating the small things is frowned upon,
Yep.
get out. I don't know what else to tell you. That's bad. Or
Yeah.
get help. How about get help?
Yeah.
Um, there was another thing you were talking about, the trends. Yeah, and I agree. I think it's mostly the big ones. We tend to
Yeah.
see women more in touch with the soft side are more
Yep.
likely to help their teams and themselves and others do it. Not a rule, just a general
Yeah.
tendency, right?
Yeah.
Um, so this conversation started because I had a client, we talked about this, and you and I brainstormed about it. And so we
Yeah.
said we agree it's important. We agree it's not happening. So we wanted to come up with some ideas to help people that we could share
Yes.
here that will
Yes.
help people. get out of this rut of not celebrating. So um I'll let you, what do you got for an idea? I've got one or two, but if you say them already, then I'll make something else up. I don't know.
So I'll give two and then you give some, and that way we're not stealing each other ideas because we think alike. So let me do two. So I would say, how do we kind of build that habit of celebration? So the first one for me is really to get rid of what I call imposter syndrome or modesty. There's no time to be modest in corporate, especially when you're, again, a high achiever, a driven individual. You didn't just have a fluke or happenstance on your success. You did that. Those are your talent, your value. So remove that imposter syndrome and really own what you've accomplished and know who you are. Knowing who you are, self-value, self-worth, I think really lends into that celebratory spirit. Another thing I'll say is just for you kind of pause and journal if that's what you do, but write it down. I have sticky notes all over my desk to kind of motivate myself, whether it's big or small after each win. I just take a few minutes to jot it down. What did I do? Who helped me? How did I surprise myself? And then when you write those things down, you learn from those things as well. And it helps you next time recognize, oh, there's another victory, there's another win. Let's celebrate that. But to your point, celebrate it in the context of what it is. There's not a need for a party every time. Maybe you do a dance to a song, or maybe you go get some coffee, or maybe, do a stretch or watch your favorite show for 30 minutes or something. So those are just kind of two or three things I would say that kind of helps you build that habit of celebrating those wins because it's a cruel, cruel world out there, Sean. And if we don't
Yeah.
celebrate ourselves or others, right, lift others up, it can get daunting very quickly.
Oh, it can. I'm gonna. I got to say the one that I can write down because you just said it. So one thing I tell my daughters all the time: don't tell yourself no. There are plenty of people in the world who will do that for you. You don't need to
Absolutely.
do it, right?
That's
Should I apply to this? Should I do that? Yes. Whatever
that's
it
right.
is, I don't care. Don't tell yourself no. Other people will do that for you more than I care to talk about. I,
Absolutely.
I'm almost going back to the previous topic of why people don't do this because you
Yeah.
reminded me of one and I didn't where when I wasn't taking notes of this feeling of, oh, I don't deserve it.
Yes.
That imposter syndrome, as you said it, right?
Yes.
Some say I
Yes.
celebrate, but I don't deserve it because the team did all the work, or I was
Yep.
just in the right place at the right time, which my theory on right place, right time means you're in lots of places all the time. So you're working your butt off, but
Yes.
one little spark is what people notice, right? So I like that imposter syndrome one.
Yeah.
Um, so I think two practical tools that I thought of for helping people um, figure out how to celebrate success. One is when to do it. And I think you should have predetermined moments, right? Oh, when we do this thing, when we do this thing, we're going to celebrate. And again, commensurate with whatever it is. But the other one is we're really good at catching people doing things wrong. Oh, I caught so and so filling out this form the wrong way. I caught so and so, blah, 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 blah. How about you catch people doing something right?
Mm.
Oh man, I caught Patrice. She was on the phone with a customer and she just sounded great. I'm just going to go celebrate her, say thank you or whatever. Catch people doing things right. When it comes to self success,
Yeah.
catch yourself doing something. Notice what you did. Like look back at the end of the day, the end of the hour, the end of the week, and be like, oh, look at this thing. I was, you know what? I'm glad I
Yeah.
did that. I'm glad I did this thing. So catch yourself. And then the idea that I had shared with the client I was talking to is because he's like, look, when it's the moment to celebrate, I just don't know what to do. And so I said, that's
Yeah.
easy, man. Make a list. Like have a list of small, medium, and large celebrations or something like that. And
Yeah.
think of it when you're in a good mood,
That's
drinking a
right.
margarita, beer, tea, whatever your deal is, make a list. And then he was like, I still don't know if I could. I said, all right, well then here's the cherry on top for you. This is a guy
Yeah.
I'm talking to. I said, ask your wife. Say, honey, what do you think I would do to celebrate? And I'll bet she'll give you things and you'll be like, oh yeah, you're right. I would totally do that. And the same thing, right? So as somebody who knows you, because
Yes.
I think the inability to generate the list goes back to your statement of imposter syndrome,
Mm-hmm.
right? Your brain is already saying, oh, you don't deserve to celebrate. We're not even going to make a
Right.
list for that. As somebody that knows and cares about you, what do you think I would do? What have you seen me do, small, medium, and large, to celebrate? And they'll
Yeah.
tell you, they'll bang out a list for you. So
Yeah. No, I like that. You're spot on. And I think I'll put a name on the part where you talked about kind of making it a part of your calendar is pretty much where you're going. And to me, that's ritualizing it, right? So ritualizing the reflection of what you've done. I was sitting here kind of thinking as you were talking, it's like, how do we sum that up for someone? And that's basically, to your point, you're blocking out some time, some intentional time that you've set apart to do that. And then you capture what you've learned, you plan for how you're going to do your shout out, whether that's telling somebody else or, to your point, asking someone else for feedback. But yeah, just ritualizing it is important because I think that we are responsible for training our brains to notice progress. We're also responsible for staying motivated and building kind of that unstoppable momentum that you and I talk about is we're pressing forward no matter what today.
we're
Like we're
doing
moving forward. It's our job to train our brains to do all of those things. And so if something goes right, we need to hit pause. And we do need to know that in that moment, let's put a spotlight on it and let's celebrate it. And to your point, ask others what they're seeing as well. Other people may see celebratory points, and you're like, really? But you did
right.
that. I mean,
It's
you did
personal, right? Yeah.
that. So yeah.
I love it. I like that ritualized, right? I think
Yeah.
that could be a whole nother thing we could talk about a different time of
Yes.
the importance of having these set moments, these set rituals, and people think it's a funky word. It just means a thing that you do a
Yes.
certain way at a certain time, right? If the way you turn on the TV is and then sit down is a ritual. It's just a
Yeah.
habit, a pattern that you follow, right? So don't get wigged out by the word. It's a habit and you got
Yes.
to be intentional about it. Tricia, so my website, I don't know, never know which way to point. My website's at here. People want to find me through the
Yes.
magic of thing. We'll probably have yours on here by the time we're done, but just in case, why don't you
Yeah.
say your website so that we've got it here too?
Yes, absolutely. So my website is TLW at Tricia L. Warren. I'm sorry. I'm telling you
Let's
my email. Let me finish that out because you
do
may need the
both.
email too. So TLW at TriciaLWarren.com and my website is TLWintegratedSolutions.com. So that's where you're able to kind of see my services and what I do. And the email is where you can contact me as well. But I think Sean, what's so important about what we're doing is even though we're entrepreneurs, we are seeking to help other businesses, we are recognizing in this moment that people are first. And when you lead with people first in your thoughts and what you do, you're a part of people. And so
Well,
you have to make sure that you take care of yourself and you take care of people as well, or this whole business thing just doesn't exist because you're not well. So I think these type of topics are important, and I'm so glad to have been able to do this topic with you today.
this was so much fun. I enjoyed this. And through the magic of editing, we will have your website and email screened in at least at the end of this thing so we can put them up there. So thanks for chatting, and I'm sure we'll do another one soon. Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.